What was the most horrific game of truth or dare you've ever played? http://gameljw. My girlfriend and I took a set of Jenga blocks and etched in the word truth or dare into the blocks and a number that corresponded with either the truth sheet or dare sheet. Each sheet was a list of truths or dares, all of them mildly humorous on paper, but devastating in reality. Questions like, when was the last time you faked an orgasm? If you haven't or can't recall, fake one now. What's the strangest thing you've ever masturbated with? If nothing unusual, smell the finger of every person in group and describe the smell. Dares like demonstrate your favorite sexual position with the person on your left. Or let dead seagulls tattoo your right thigh. I have almost no tattoo experience. Among the truths and dares there were 5 group choice in each category. Any truth or dare could be declined by a shot, and if anyone intentionally knocks over the tower they have to lick the left nipple of all same-sex players until the nipple is erect. Loser has to take a shot and do a group choice dare. This game nearly broke up 3 couples in the picture above. The girl eating the sunchip out of Mars is the guy on the right's girlfriend. The questions were too real to raw, resulted in people walking out of the room, but at the same time it was like a train wreck. They kept coming back. At first you decline so many of them by taking a shot, but after 7 shots, you're answering what the sluttiest thing you've ever done was, right next to your girlfriend, who decided that she's going to truthfully answer the last time she faked an orgasm. Sheet was brutal, everyone ended up naked and in the snow. All relationships still intact, but in the way that people who survive a disaster sometimes stay in touch. TLDR, Truth or Dare Jenga, Adult Edition. Edit posted ruler sheet, blocks, and truth and dare sheets here. Edit 2 gold. Thanks. Playing in a group of girls, all around 13 to 14 years old. The most kind-hearted girl there with the sweetest face, cute little curls and freckles, is dared to take a dump on a plate in front of the rest of us. No hesitation. Just giggles. Okay, where's the plate? The girl whose house it was then proceeds to keep said plate in the basement freezer for a couple weeks, for science, until her mom found it. I don't know if they kept the plate. Edit for clarification, occurs to me now that tuck a dump might just be an American colloquialism. It means she took a sheet/crap/poo. By no hesitation, I mean the dairy did not hesitate to agree. There was a good 10 to 15 minutes of oh man, are we really going to do this? Going upstairs to get a plate, giggling, and the girl starting in a corner with her back turned. I believe she did like a half poo on the plate, then went to the bathroom to finish up and clean herself up. Some of us watched more than others. I think I got a glance for a few seconds and decided that was enough for me. I was also a teenage girl at the time, still a girl. I don't think she would have done this with guys present. There is no good or psychologically sound reason to have kept the plate. I was tied to a chair in only my underwear covered in peanut butter, and they put me about 6 feet from the door and ordered a pizza. He wouldn't open the door when I was yelling at him that it was open. After about 3 minutes he finally did, and he was pretty terrified. I told him the money was in the pocket of the jacket hanging up and that he could keep the change. He asked if I needed help, and I said nah, my friends will come back eventually, I'm just really hungry. The dude set the pizza in my lap, which I thought was okay until he left, and it started to burn really bad. I was okay. My friends all came out of hiding after he left, and just busted up laughing. There is a video of it somewhere. As it turns out I would work at that same pizza place for about 2 years. The guy who delivered it worked there and didn't recognize me until I asked him about his weirdest delivery story. I laughed for a while and told him it was me and I did it because of a dare. He didn't really look at me the same ever again. TLDR, mostly naked, tied to chair, covered in peanut butter, ordered pizza. Edit, peanut butter. Edit 2, we had no idea that Andy Milonakis had done this, it was just random. Sorry for being accidentally unoriginal. Edit 3, http://i.imga.com/I really am looking for it. It may be lost to the void though. Edit 4, he laughed more than I remember. Still funny though. http://www.youtube.com/ It wasn't a game of truth or dare, but something kinda like it. You put one person in the middle of a ring of people, and they ask questions to the people around them. The object of the game is for the person in the middle to guess the rules of the game. Everyone else already knows the rules, so the rules of the game are pretty easy. 1. When asked a question, you answer to the best of your ability for the person next to you. 2. If the person answering for you gets it wrong, you say bullshit and the side that you are answering for reverses. Instead of answering for the person on your left, you go right. So needless to say, things got strange right away. The girl in the middle was getting creeped out and confused. I remember she asked me, how big is your business? And I answered for the girl sitting next to me, I don't have one, duh. So she's getting really frustrated. Finally she turns to her brother who was also playing. She asked him, have you ever had a sexual fantasy about me? He takes a very slow look at the guy sitting beside him. Turns back to her. And completely deadpan he replies, I'm having one right now. We had to stop playing after that. Edit. Since so many people asked, she kinda freaked out and gave up. I don't think we could have continued afterwards anyways. We were all laughing too hard. I was 12 or 13. I was at my step-aunt's house. There were a lot of young adults around, and then my aunt. She asked truth or dare. I said truth. She asked me if I wanted to sleep with her. Edit 0. I actually said no, or something like that. I was blunt and immediate with my response. Edit. She was in her 30s or 40s, I'm guessing. Edit 2. I seriously didn't expect this much attention, and I never really told anyone that story before. Nothing happened. She was kinda gross. She was the only adult in the circle, and I was the oldest person in the circle. She was kind of entertaining the kids and teaching some how to play. Nobody in the game really understood what she was asking me. Edit 3. I also had a step aunt on the other side that asked me, at about the same age, how's your dick coming in? Do you want to put it to use? And that time I actually told my stepmom about it, and she explained it away, something about her having a miscarriage and not being all there. We, 3 guys and 3 girls, were all in the hot tub at this chick's house, and I get dared to go mash my dick/balls up against her parents' bedroom window. Granted, it's like 1 AM, and the whole house is completely dark, so I thought it would be no big deal. Get out of the hot tub, run over to the window, drop my suit, and smash my junk up against the window for a few moments. Then, in the reflective light of the pool, I catch a glimpse of her parents sitting right inside the window, watching us from inside. They didn't even blink, just watched me. It was faking terrifying. Terrifying. Like, I saw them for a split faking second as the light passed over the glass, just inches away from my mashed up dick on the other side of the window. Something from a horror movie. I gasped and ran back to the hot tub, got back in, and just sat there in complete silence. A couple minutes later, her dad comes outside laughing, hands me a beer, and then reminisces with all of us for a minute about the crazy shit he did when he was a kid. I've never felt a shock like I did when I saw their faces. It still haunts me sometimes, but it all turned out better than expected. I was 25. There was this farm party when I was around 15 years old. Everyone was told to bring different types of alcohol or they'd regret it. Guess who forgot to bring alcohol? So the person who didn't bring any alcohol had to be subject to one dare. No bussying out, no limits. Basically I had no choice or say in the dare. I could only agree and do it. So, in the middle of the party, the host, girl who was same age as me, shouts that it's time for Broca Taco to do the dare. She gets all her girlfriends together, and they plan the most embarrassing, exposing, devious dare ever. You have to let us blindfold you, tie you up, and do whatever we want for 15 minutes. Edit. Here's what happened. It felt like they were putting cold water on me. They told me it was ketchup, mustard, and other shit like peanut butter. Eventually they started to get pervy ideas, and soon enough my pants are being pulled off. I feel the cold water again, but on my schlong. I freaked out, mainly because they whispered to take pictures. I'll never know if they did, but it was embarrassing as hell, and I was really nervous of nudes circulating or something. Someone said we still have like 10 minutes left, what else can we do? And I hear my friend's voice say lick it off. I literally thanked God for his existence right then and there, because without him, I wouldn't have gotten a BJ that night. When I was still in high school, we played Truth or Dare at a public jacuzzi, but we were young and horny, so we played a more adult version of Truth or Dare. So 3 of my friends and 3 other girls who were all attractive. It was a win/win situation. It all started with me. One of the girls dared me take some sugar, which she strangely has in her car, and lick it off her friend's tongue, who has not shown up to the party yet. I was stoked off life. I was betting this girl was going to be super attractive. 5 minutes later, she walks in. I quickly turned to check her out with a smile. My smile quickly died. She was extremely unattractive. Her breasts were in different directions. Her face looked like a cow. She walks in and says sorry, I was smoking a cigarette. They quickly inform her on the dare, and she agrees rather quickly. I'm trying to stall time. I even called my dad to pick me up, but he didn't answer. Everything was set. She had the sugar on her tongue and was waiting. There was no getting out of it. I walk over and look at her mouth. I see her teeth are yellow and smelt like cigarettes. I went in for the deed. She then breathed the most atrocious smelling breath I have ever smelt. The smell was so horrific I threw up all over her. I quickly apologized and ran out of there. TLDR, I was dared to lick sugar off an unattractive girl's tongue and threw up all over her in the process. When I was about 10 or 12 or so, one of my friends had a big house and would throw infamous all-night sleepover parties for his birthday, where we'd do stuff like videotape our Wayne's World parodies or play with Nerf guns under blacklight, stuff like that. His parents had a hot tub in their bedroom, I know, now, so one year we all wanted to get in it. No one had a swimsuit, because who puts a hot tub inside, so we all went in with our witty tighties on. We played Truth or Dare, all 5 or 6 of us boys. Nothing sexual, so if you're disappointed, sorry about that. But the funny thing that this leads up to is our tradition of hazing the first guy at the party who goes to sleep. We had all removed our underwear to dry and went commando under our shorts, and one guy got sleepy and went to sleep first. We put his wet underwear in the freezer, poking it with a fork every few hours to make it take the perfect shape. Around 7 AM we put the frozen underwear helmet on his head, put sunglasses on him, and put a Minnie Mouse umbrella above his head. Got the camcorder rolling as we woke him up, and called it John's Day at the beach. I was ordered to play 7 Minutes in Heaven at a party as a dare, and they would pick the girl. I was blindfolded and placed in the bathroom. Minutes went by, but the guy who put me to it kept telling me to stay in there and be quiet. After some time the door opened, and I felt a body shoved against mine. It was a girl, I could tell, so we made out a bit. I started feeling her up, and ran my fingers through her hair. It felt familiar somehow. I traced her arm, and felt her watch. I touched the fabric of her shirt. It was my shirt. The girl was completely clueless, but I understood that the girl they had picked to get in there with me was none other than my big sister, who was at the same party, but not in the game at the time, and the others likely pulled her from whatever she was doing to do this. She was still into it though, ran her tongue in my mouth, and squeezed my bottom. I pushed her away, and ran out without a word. People were laughing hysterically outside. I felt devastated. She found out what happened, and she made everyone involved, including me, swear not to tell anyone about it. She can be very aggressive and intimidating when she want to be. TLDR, the most nightmarish game of 7 Minutes in Heaven imaginable. It was 2 years ago on a Saturday in late July at a now closed gay bar in my town where my drunk, now ex-girlfriend had a fantastic idea. She decided to invite herself and I, along with some dude named Junior she just met that night, to our mutual friend Mitch's house about 15 to 20 miles away for even more drinking. Of course, in Texas you can't buy alcohol after certain hours due to blow laws or something. So she had the second fantastic idea of actually driving to the nearest gas station in Louisiana. I live in Beaumont, Texas, which is about 40 miles west from the Louisiana border, so we do that. We got liquor. Yay, even though Mitch had some at his house. Whatever, more alcohol. Now we are at his house. So we foreplay drinking games with cards for a bit. What could go wrong in this situation? Girlfriend wants to play Truth or Dare. Fun times can be had with this exciting game, my friends. She said something along those lines. We start. Typical 2D truth questions that aren't really worth mentioning. Now the dares. Oh boy, the dares. Now this game was played with 3 guys and 1 girl, with only me and Junior being straight and Mitch being more flaming than an attack by the Fire Nation. How much guy on guy making out do you expect out of this? Apparently more than most independently produced softcore gay adult films. Or gay bonus in layman's apostrophe terms. I'm semi-tipsy at this point, so I do it, like 12 faking times. Goddamn, my ex loved daring me to make out with Junior and Mitch. She also made me strip down to nothing and run through the house singing some song by Lady Gaga faking beach. I didn't mind the naked part, but I didn't really know any Gaga songs by heart, so I couldn't do my dare any fair justice. Oh well, they were satisfied with it, I guess. Now of course Mitch didn't mind all of this crazy behavior from the dares. In fact, he was so drunk he thought of a brilliant dare to make my girlfriend give both me and Junior handjobs by any means necessary. She does this dare to me first cause she knows I would be the easy one. She was right. Now on to Junior. Now all the rubbing and touching did nothing to this guy. So girlfriend unbuttons his pants and goes for full contact handjobbing with some neck kissing and other shit that pissed me off. After like 10 or so minutes he cracked, so she was done. Or so I thought. After the last dare of the night involving her slapping my naked as harder than Gallagher hitting any watermelon. This happened like 30 times. Which reminds me, my cheeks sure looked like the inside of a watermelon and felt swollen to the point of feeling like the mallet-prone fruit after the finale. Okay, we are done with that. We go back to her hotel room she was staying in for that weekend and nothing special happened after that. She said it was just a game and I shouldn't be upset. Okay, sure, fine. The next night, her birthday night by the way, she wanted me to go to the bar with her, but I had work in the morning, so I couldn't go. I told her to have fun. I trusted her, I said. So she went out with Mitch and happened to run into Junior. Alcohol was consumed and they ended up doing the nasty in his car and his place. Next day she calls me to confess saying she slept at JR's place on his couch and nothing happened. I believed her. 1 week later she confesses the real truth to me because she doesn't want to feel guilty with sin and she wants to get closer to God and not in the cool nin way by being truthful. Fact, truth or dare? I'm honestly past it now, but I have a sheetload of stories, so I guess that's a good thing. TLDR, played drunk in 2D with gay friend, girlfriend, and some guy we met at a bar. An innocent handjob dare given to her to do on the guy leads to her cheating on me with him on her birthday. Probably my best, most relevant story to an Credit ever, but prepared to be buried. About a year ago I went out with my ex-girlfriend, who I was still kind of seeing, and all her college friends, them all being in college. They all went clubbing, got way too wasted, especially my ex. I took care of them, and I felt pretty great about that. Really cared about that girl, and was happy I kept her safe when she was pretty much blacked out. When we get back I think, hey, I deserve some fun. I just took care of everyone. Let's, ex's girlfriends and I, play truth or dare with some liquor. Wake up the next morning naked on the floor in a fur coat. Say hi and everyone's angry, starts yelling at me. Apparently we got so drunk playing TOD I ended up pissing in a closet, thinking it was the bathroom. Puking everywhere, casually getting naked, being hostile. My inner insecurities over her friends not liking me manifested went from so much positive real life karma to so much negative real life karma in one 5-hour blackout. Bad times TLDR. Good guy X plus blackout equals piss vomit fur coat naked everyone hates you. One night after a trivia night at a local bar with a bunch of former band kids, my friends and I decide to go see a movie. We make it all the way to the movie theater, only to realize that it's closed. It's like midnight though, so how we didn't realize this was beyond us. But we told our parents we were getting home late, so we had to pass the time somehow. We drove around for a bit and decided to play a game called Paddle, where every time you see a car with a head or taillight out, you say paddle and the last person to say it has to remove an article of clothing. We end up all in our underwear with one girl only in a bra and decide to go to McDonald's for some fries. When we get there and order and realize that order is taking a long time, The front side passenger looks in the rearview mirror and screams after seeing that the driver behind us was signaling with her hands. 911. We all freak out and park and rush to get our clothes on just before 3 cop cars arrive. Being the only one brave enough to talk to them, I found out that apparently naked car passengers are a sign of drug use and workers are required to call the police if they see this sort of thing. Luckily, we were all clothed, and the cops were friendly about it. They just wanted to make sure we weren't high as shit. We all get back in the car and get going when the guy next to me pipes up, "God damn, I'm glad they didn't ask for ID. I'm only 15. This was the first any of us, all 18 plus, had heard of it. I went to a party once and was the only sober person there because I had to leave at some point to pick my parents up from the airport. So I get to the party and meet the host's housemate, Jay. As I walk into the lounge room, I see the TV is playing the newest episode of Doctor Who is playing and remark, "Oh, cool, Doctor Who." Immediately following this is Jay, in my personal space with drink in hand enthusiastically saying "You like Doctor Who" at uncomfortable volume. Following this is an evening of retain my personal space as Jay continually gets close and be loud. To make it worse, all my friends are egging Jay on, talking about how hot I was and asking if Jay agreed. Awkward, awkward, awkward. So, truth or dare begins at some point. It's fun. There's guys licking salt off other guys' chests and girls making out. My friend and I did a run across the road, around the entire park, and back in our underwear, with Jay staring at me the entire time. Finally, the truth/dare comes around to Jay. My friends are at the height of their disarray and really stretching for a way to push Jay onto me, because that would be hilarious. I'd already taken a truth option to avoid being dared to kiss Jay. So they dare Jay to give me a lap dance. And it's one of those incredibly awkward social situations where I know that I can handle being uncomfortable for an evening. I really don't want to be in that situation and it's getting worse. But saying no, I'm not letting that fat sack of shit near me, or any variation thereof, is just going to make everyone go ballistic. Jay is so nice. It's just harmless fun. Don't be such a beach, etc, etc. So, lap dance. Awkward flabby gyrations over my rigid form on the couch. I grit my teeth, bear it, and excuse myself to the kitchen to grab another Coke immediately after. My friend Shane follows me and is all like, "You made that really awkward. Why can't you just have some fun and make Jay feel good?" I didn't really know how to respond. I just felt uncomfortable and pretty grossed out, as well as increasingly angry at my friends. Dunno why everyone thought it was okay. I end up leaving for the airport maybe 2 hours before I'd planned. I head out to my motorbike. The plan was to head home and grab my car on the way to the airport, and being on the bike really removes all temptation to drink. A couple of the girls and guys, including Jay, follow me out to say goodbye/croon over the bike. So right in front of everyone, Jay kind of muscles up to me after I've given Shane a goodbye hug. Cue awkward hug attempt from Jay that I try to avoid by turning away and starting the bike. But Jay's determined and sort of grabs me, so I think fuck it, hugs and then GTFO. Then Jay goes in for the kiss. So my hand is up, pushing Jay's face away, and I'm saying "Dude, fuck off," and, released, get on my bike, yank my helmet on and roar off. Shane reckons they all stood out there listening to the sound of my scrambler revving like crazy as it got further away for a good minute, with Jay sort of sniveling the entire time. Next day I've got a friend request on Facebook. You'd better believe I ignored that sheet. Now for a fun game, I will award Reddit gold to whoever can guess the correct gender of myself. Jay and Shane 100% too legit for quit honest. Quick edit, 1 guess per person, probably, because there's only a finite number of combos which you could easily just run through. Second edit, /u/hercheps at 45 got it right. We're all girls. Basically, dyke, not actually lesbian, on a bike molested by a bi-curious nerd girl. She got the idea that I liked girls because I'd made out with Shane earlier in Truth or Dare piece. She probably should have taken the hint when I chose truth over making out with her, and the truth I had to tell was how I'd done anal with my ex-boyfriend. I'll gift the gold to Hitcheps at 45. When I'm at home, I don't take my credit card to work with me, and my computer won't take cash. 3. I was in the 10th grade, and we had all been smoking weed and watching Tommy Boy at my friend's place. He had an awesome basement set up. We ended up playing with 3 girls and 4 boys. One of the girls gets dared to flash the dad of the kid who lived at the house we were at. She takes the dare and runs upstairs baked out of her skull and flashes him. Turns out he's in the living room cranking on it while watching some 70s Betamax style porn, and says to her, perfect timing, picture Diedrich Bader in Office Space for this dad, but add 20 years. She freaks out and runs back downstairs screaming shoulder pick truth, shoulder pick truth. Then she fell the last flight of stairs and smashed her teeth into the ground and popped up bleeding, crying, and saying shoulder pick head trough, while blood was spurting out of her mouth. It was awesome and horrid all at the same time, and we were told to leave very quickly. He gave her frozen peas to put on her swollen lips. She refused the ride home he offered. No, I'm late. Okay, a few years back I went on tour with my brother's band doing things like merch, sound, etc. There were 3 other bands on this tour, with a total of 22 guys aged 19 to 28. One of these bands was absolutely nuts. They were a strange type of hillbilly that were really endearing and likable, until they decided to do a truth or dare type competition. Think scavenger hunt. It involved things like playing the same song thrice in the same set, playing the Iron Man riff at the end of every song at a show, who could purposefully get pulled over for speeding the most over the limit, drinking a fellow band member's piss, etc. But there was one that took the cake. It's at this point I should point out the Christian rock nature of this tour. I understand that is generally laughable to people, but it is important to the story. The last and most profitable dare was to sheet one's own pants on stage. So at the end of this band set, kids are worshipping, band is finishing big, and this frontman squats down while belting a huge note and sheets his own pants. He then proceeds to high-five every kid on the front row, run off stage and clean up. They were the only ones who participated in that whole thing, and I'll be damned if they didn't win every one. TLDR, Christian singer sheets pants on stage on a dare and proceeds to high-five worshippers. A friend of mine and I were sitting in high school chemistry class, sophomores, when an extremely attractive junior came up to us and asked if she could copy our test. We told her we both got C's. She said she didn't care and took the test, sat down next to us, and began copying it. Midway through her scantron she's leaned over bubbling answers, and I look over to see her thong sticking out of the back of her pants. I poke my friend in the arm and point. He smiles and whispers, "I'll give you $10 if you give her a thong wedgie right now." I didn't have a job at the time and assumed I'd get in minor trouble for it, so I leaned over and said, "Sorry." Girl's name, grabbed her thong and lifted her straight out of the chair about a foot in the air, looked over at my buddy, who's hysterically laughing already, and asked, "Good enough?" He manages to stop laughing long enough to say yes, and I let go. I apologize to the girl again, and she smirks and goes, "Don't worry, happens all the time." My friend and I burst out laughing again. Our teacher was less than pleased. Horrific part was, when she got her test back she had, and it turns out we weren't the only ones that found her attractive. Goddamn, I'm always late to these threads. I was supervising a school camp, pretty relaxed school. They needed action hours to finish the course, so they figured they would have a camp. I was 18, they were 17, and I had gone to school with them, but left for various reasons. So of course, being the responsible person I was, I bought them all booze, and we sat around drinking and chatting. We eventually start playing Truth or Dare, which starts out pretty fun, with kissing, dirty questions etc. But it escalated when one of the guys dared me to eat something out of one of the girls' vaginas. You are probably thinking sweet, but no. After 3 days, with no shower facilities, with only marshmallows to use, I ended up having to eat soggy, mushy marshmallows covered in 3-day-old vagina cheese sauce. It was the most disgusting thing I have ever put in my mouth. And that was just the beginning. It was winter. I had just gotten into an argument with my friend Ralphie and another friend of mine. The friend said that if I stuck my tongue onto a metal pole, the pole would be so cold that my tongue would stick to it. He said his old man knew a guy who stuck his tongue to a metal train track and died. I told him that his old man is full of crap. So he said, oh yeah, prove it then. You're dumb, there's no way, I told him. He then took this harmless argument to a whole new level. Oh yeah. Well, I dare ya. The assembled crowd let out a collective gasp. I played it off and called him stupid again. Oh yeah. Well, I double dare ya. Clearly it was no longer a game. But I stood firm, restating my opinion of his low intelligence. Oh yeah. Well, I triple dog dare ya. Shock. Pure amazement. The fact that he had the tenacity to skip straight to the triple dog dare. Wow. Despite this slight breach of etiquette, I was backed into a corner. I looked around at the people who were eagerly anticipating what I knew inevitably had to happen. I approached my enemy. As far as flagpoles go, this one looked particularly dastardly. But what can a young boy do when his back is against the wall? One last time, I explained that the composition of his body was mainly crap and approached the flagpole. I stuck my tongue out, inching closer, inching, until, plop, contact was made. I broke into a grin. I was in the clear. I've won. I began to pull back, to laugh in his face, but something was wrong. I pulled and pulled but nothing happened. I, flick, had my tongue frozen to the flagpole. My screams of horror were soon muffled by the sound of the bell, signifying recess had come to an end. Immediately, my friends abandoned me. I scream, I muffled Ralphie. Don't leave me. Somehow, he heard me. But to my horror, he turned and said, but the bell rang. I waited for what seemed like years with my tongue stuck to the flagpole. And then, my teacher came out, calling the fire department. They cut my tongue off the pole, just a little off the tip, bandaged it, and sent me back to class, physically and psychologically scarred. That is my story. Despite this life-altering dare, I'm still proud to say that it was a good winter. I guess you could say that it turned out to be quite the Christmas story. So one of my friends had a couple of us guys over, and the same number of girls were going to show up later. His mom and her friend were there, but she just told us guys my friend and I are going out later. I would like it if you guys didn't fuck any girls while we are still here. Girls show up about 10 minutes later. Fast forward to the game. One of the girls dared me to walk out in front of everybody with nothing but a Winstead cup on my dick. Fast forward another couple minutes. I was in the guest bedroom, and I was taking my time getting ready, as I was not exactly thrilled about what I had to do. The girl who dared me, how do I put this lightly? She was really open when it comes to sex, knocked on the door, and said, do you need any help in there? To which I reply, maybe in a minute or so. A minute of stalling goes by, and I hear two things. I hear the doorknob twist, and I hear my friend screaming, oh god, don't go in there. The mom's friend walked in to grab her wallet as they were about to go out. As a shocked but smooth drunk, I manager jolted, hello, I'm now the Winstead Cup champion. High school. Parents went to Dover for the race for the weekend. It was my senior year and they have never trusted me to go to parties or to drive or have people over. I still had to be in bed by 9. So naturally fuck them, I'm throwing a party. The last thing he said to me was, no one comes over. I rode their motorcycles to class, took it to work, invited a ton of people over, got in my first drinking game, shot for shot. I ended up winning with 25 shots. As soon as I stood up I was done, instantly hammered. I ended up getting dared to streak with the other guy I was going shot for shot with. I fell so many times on the asphalt, blood everywhere. I ended up pissing and cheating and puking on the carpet. When I came to, someone put pants on me, no boxers, so I knew something wasn't right. Then my parents came home. Puke still all over the white carpet. Someone was sleeping, reed boning, in my parents' bed. Someone did pick the alcohol up, except 130 rack box. I spent the entire day faking drunk and cleaning the carpet/house. That night he told me I have overused my welcome here and I need to move out. I walked out 2 days later with my school books and a gym bag. There is supposedly a video somewhere, but I refuse to see it. Maybe in time. This was 8 years ago, haven't talked to my dad since. TLDR, through first party in high school, puked on the white carpet, and kicked out of the house before graduation. No bussy. was at my boyfriend's cottage with another couple, 2 female friends, and one guy whose girlfriend wasn't there. We were drinking pretty heavily early evening, typical cottage behavior, and a game of truth or dare ensued in a dark bedroom. I don't know if you've played TOD in the dark, but it is even more uninhibiting than regular type. Worst dare I had to do was use a beer bottle as still do. Things then got out of hand. One girl was dared to make out with another, blah blah blah, the rest is history. Basically, a teenage makeout orgy ensued. Everyone just made out with each other and groped each other. No guy on guy occurred as far as I know, but everything else was fair game. The 2 couples were not just hooking up with each other, and the guy who was in a relationship, whose girlfriend wasn't there, was all into it too. It was a whirlwind of hormones, and we got up the next morning and never spoke of it again. The guy whose girlfriend wasn't there is now married to the girl, and she has no clue this ever happened. TLDR, drunken truth or dare at a cottage leads to teenage orgy. What was the most wonderful game of truth or dare that I've ever played? Well, okay, since you asked. I was at this girl's house that was a friend of mine. There was her, 4 of her female friends, me, my brother, and another guy. We did all the standard truth or dare sort of things. The girls dared us to dress up like girls, and we did, and they took pictures. It was a good time. After a while, my brother and the other guy had to leave. There I was, alone with 5 girls, playing truth or dare. I was 16. They were between the ages of 13 to 17. We decided to ask her mom if she could get us some beer. She said sure, and went and got us a case. Her mom was pretty cool. After a while of drinking, talking, and playing around, one of the girls suggested that we take the game up to her room. We were all up for it, so we went upstairs to her room. We continued playing the standard truth or dare game for a while. I was excited for it to get to my turn to take a dare. Eventually, it got back to me. I said, dare. The girl said to me, I dare you to get naked, right here, right now. I said, okay. I stood up, took my shirt off, took my pants and socks off, and I was naked. Yes, commando. The girls all sort of giggled to each other, and the one who dared me to get naked said, wow, I didn't think that you'd do it that fast. From there they all progressively dared each other to do things to me. They very carefully kept it from ever being my chance to say truth or dare to any of them again, but that's cool cause they were daring each other to do things to me. Eventually, one girl decided that she needed to make a dare that involved the whole group of girls. She asked the girl who lived there if she had any icing or whipped cream or anything. She responded that yes, she did in fact have some icing downstairs. So, the girl went and got the icing and dared all the girls to smear the icing all over me and lick it off. And they did. I laid down and they smeared the icing all over my chest / stomach / junk, and they licked and sucked it off. All 5 of them. It was a pretty good time. I tried to convince them to have an orgy with me, but only one of the girls was down with it. As the night went on and we all got tired, the other girls ended up wandering off, and me and the one girl had sex for several hours. So there, I hope I answered your question. That was the most wonderful game of truth or dare that I ever played. Oh shit, wait, you asked for the most horrific game I'd ever played. Oh well, fuck it, that's the only game I'll ever care to remember. My friend owned a Ouija board, but was so terrified of them that he never let his friends play with it. So, my buddy and I came up with this plan to trick him into letting us use the board during a sleepover. Naturally, we started playing truth or dare, because how else are you going to peer pressure an 11-year-old to do something he doesn't want to do? When it was his turn, he chose dare and we dared him to allow us to all play with a Ouija board for 30 minutes. The board was quite boring, but we ended up moving the piece to spell death to get a rise out of our friend. Anyway, my friend freaks out and runs into the bathroom, where he coincidentally died from a ruptured brain aneurysm moments later. The whole experience was quite shocking. I took it a lot better than my old friend, who struggled with mental health issues and horrible nightmares 4 years after our friend's untimely death. We ended up drifting apart shortly after, as I found his statements unsettling. You can only hear he blames us, or we'll pay for this, so many times, before you get tired of a person's crazy ramblings. Unfortunately, his mental illness got the best of him, but at least he's at peace now. TLDR, sprained ankle jumping off a roof. I was in 7th grade at the time. A friend and I had gotten these 8th grade girls' number, so we felt cool. Anyway, that night we ended up going over there to hang out, because her dad was out at the bar, and wouldn't be back for a while. The girl we went to see had friend over that I had liked, so I was liking the situation. Well, we started to play truth or dare, while drinking a little bit of her dad's booze. Then we hear the sound of a snowmobile and she's like, "OHH sheet. UHH, get on the couch and act normal." So whatever, I play along, and drunken daddy grabs my head a little, and says, "Who's this little fella?" I'm sorta sheeting my pants at this point, cause I don't know what this guy's all about. He ends up walking into the kitchen, pounded a few more beers then passed out. As we were waiting for my sister to come get us, we all decided to play truth or dare some more. Then I dared my friend to make out with the guy's daughter. So they're kissing, and drunk dad happens to walk out of his room, stop and look at the scene for a second, followed by a "what the fuck?" As I'm tugging on my friend's shirt. Her dad runs back into the kiss room to grab something, and we run out his door. I'm running so fast I kick open the second door, which was some sheety screen door, and it breaks off its hinge some. Thankfully my sister had arrived, and we got away. Throw away for this. This is about I never BTW, not truth or dare, but here it goes. When I was around 17 to 19 I had this really cool thing going, or at least I thought it was cool, that whenever I ate a girl out I'd add a lollipop, the confectionery, not my dick, to the equation. None of the girls ever complained, which obviously made me think that I was the greatest cunnilingologist under the sun, and that my lollipop thing was the new Kamasutra. At some point I met that really awesome girl, and you guessed it, I used the lollipop strategy once again for old time's sake. She enjoyed it tremendously and asked me to do it whenever I ate her out. Sometime later, the relationship was maybe a month old at that point. My friends and I went to a festival, and because we had a spare ticket I asked the girl to join us. So one evening we were sitting around the fire, beer, BBQ, etc. when someone started a round of good ol' I never, and when it was the girl's turn she made the mistake to say I never received oral sex that included the usage of a lollipop. I'll never forget the tone of her voice and the "it's our sexy secret thing" look in her eyes when she uttered that fateful sentence. I'll also never forget how her facial expressions changed when 6 to 7 girls started drinking their beers simultaneously. TLDR, I'm a hoe. I was 18. I had just started dating this girl about 2 weeks prior, and we went to hang out with another couple. The other girl suggests we play, so we are sitting around asking each other dumb questions to get the ball rolling. I mean, it's stuff like what color is your toothbrush, and who was your secret crush in 7th grade, harmless stuff. All of a sudden, the other girl, who it should be noted, was pretty close friends with my girlfriend, turns to her and asks, "Have you ever been afraid of your dad?" My girlfriend says I don't want to talk about that very sternly, but her friend, who already knew the story, pushes her until she admits that her dad had molested her. I was horrified at the lack of tact and sensitivity. As they began to argue, the other girl says, "Well, I just think he should know about it," pointing at me. I remind you at this point that we'd been dating for 2 weeks, hardly enough time for an incestual rap victim to feel comfortable enough with me to share such a horrible thing. Needless to say, the rest of the night was extremely uncomfortable. After that, we didn't hang out with that girl much. Went camping with a group of friends and their friends type thing. We rented several cabins at Akoa campgrounds. Dared to do a double 7 minutes in heaven with 2 girls who both liked me. So they gave us 14 minutes as a joke, hoping to make it more embarrassing. Well, when the door shut I said, "What do you ladies want to do?" They said, "We can start with kissing." They were in bikinis, and I was in swim shorts. We ended up having a threesome, and locking the door for the inside, so we could have more time. One of the girls was a virgin, the other was not. Both were wild, had a great time. All of us did things with each other. Afterwards, when we came out everyone cheered. Things were going great. The 3 of us had sex again several times that weekend. Cuddled together the 2 nights we had. The horrible part, well, we didn't use condoms. Young, stupid, horny, and the amount of sex the three of us had was pretty ridiculous. So I did not live close to them at all, and then got a call saying we should meet. I'm thinking, wow, more awesome sex. Nope, we met at a diner and they both thought they were pregnant. I almost blacked out. It turns out neither were, but for a few weeks I was sheeting bricks. And I made damn sure to use condoms after that. TLDR had threesome in 7 minutes in heaven. Thought I knocked them both up. Use condoms forever after. I'm not sure what's worse about this thread, the responses, or that I've watched enough anime in the past week to have a clip relating to every single one. My story, I was playing Truth or Dare in, it must have been 7th grade, the year before I moved, and we were all picking truth, because teenage boys are assholes. When it comes to dare, I decided to throw a curveball and pick dare. There was this girl in our grade. She was about 5'3", tiny in every respect, with tiny little pigtails and tiny little eyes. Her hands were tiny with tiny painted nails with tiny flower patterns. You get the point. She was a mouse for all I cared. And to make up for that, got your Allah, the flying spaghetti monster, Carl Sagan, whomever you believe or call God, graced her with muscles and a sharp mouth. I'll be damned if she couldn't have carried any single one of the boys in our group from our school in California right to the Grand Canyon and dropped them over the edge. Oh yeah, she had a temper too. In 4th grade, I tried to be nice to her. That was when she had transferred into the school and gotten nothing but anger back. It's a policy of mine, don't piss off people for no reason, and someone I'd pissed her off for no real reason. I don't get it. Regardless, since 4th grade, she'd held serious animosity towards me. Welp, these buddies o' mine dared me to ask her if she wanted help with cleaning the classroom. It was her classroom chore. I was exempt for a week because I'd aced the midterm. I reluctantly sauntered up to her, stood there for a moment, contemplating my word choice. She was arranging the textbooks from last semester in the closet and was entirely absorbed. I decided the best course of action was to be blunt. Hey, you want help? I'm the only person not doing work and I kinda feel bad about. That's as far as I got. Suddenly, with the swiftness of a faking trained special ops soldier, there were 3 heavy textbooks slamming straight down onto my head. I was knocked out cold. She never came back to school. I wonder from time to time what happened to her. I was at a cast party while I was still in high school. I'm a female who wears glasses, and I really don't like getting physically, or emotionally even, close to people. It was a bad air in context, but we had established nothing too wild would be asked. They were a bunch of Christian kids anyways. However, gets to my turn and a lot of the dares had been dumb and harmless fun. I had to scream "You shall not pass" in the front yard past midnight, while someone pretended to be a Balrog, so I chose dare this time around too. I was asked to be a slutty librarian and ask out one of the girl's boyfriends without laughing or cracking into a smile. I did it. Maybe too well. Everyone was pretty surprised, but really all you have to do is drop your glasses down to your nose bridge, put your shoulders back a bit, and get your elbows close together while you lean forward asking where that overdue book is before hefty fines are incurred. Never breaking eye contact helps too, but a lot of the guys went to walk around outside afterwards, and the girls were a mix of shaming and impressed. Truth or Dare is a weird game. About 4 years ago, when I was in college, I vowed that never again would I play this game. I had only played it since I was living so far away from my parents' house, knowing the crazy shit that my friends would put me through with that game. They'd probably kill me if they found out I played it. Z. Really was too bad, considering this game can be great fun, as long as there are boundaries that can't be crossed. Anyway, here's a story. I was playing Truth or Dare with myself and just 4 people. My girlfriend, my best friend, and my secret crush. The very first person to go was my best friend, and worthy to say it got into really intense dares really fast. My crush said hold out your hand. In it, she put a used tampon she had just taken out. It only went downhill from here. The second turn went to my girlfriend, and she chose dare. He asked my girlfriend if she would stand outside of our dorm room, completely naked wearing nothing but a cowboy hat. Believe it or not, she really did it. I think there were only 2 people who saw, both females, so it's lucky we didn't get evicted. It wasn't nearly as catastrophic as I thought it would be, but the next day went really deep. My girlfriend was the next to ask. So she asked my crush, and she chose truth. My girlfriend, who wasn't very experienced in this game, and slightly drunk, simply asked her if there was anyone she wanted to date at this moment. Almost, with no hesitation, she said she wanted to date me. Here's where it all went to shit. I said I wanted to date her too. As I stated, she was my secret crush, and I wanted to dump my girlfriend for her. The opportunity arose, so I took it. As soon as I said yes, it seemed like everything went in slow motion. I knew someday that I'd like to be with her, but I never knew it would come this soon. There was a huge fight between me and my girlfriend in our bedroom, but I was feeling way too damn good to care. Eventually, I left with my crush back to her place. That all sounds wonderful, right? Not really. The next day my girlfriend was found in her apartment, flat on the floor, dead. She had committed suicide 2 hours after I had dumped her. She wasn't old enough to have many people broken up with her in the past, so she took this incredibly hard, and I guess she just didn't want to live anymore. We all felt like animals. We had caused this, and we learned the hard way that this game needed boundaries. It wasn't too long after that, maybe a week or so, before my crush, or current girlfriend, and myself went on a date. We went to this beautiful cafe and ordered some coffee and biscuits, which came to $4.95. As we sit down with this aromatic food, the waitress comes up to me and says, "Sir, you forgot your change. Here's a nickel back." It was just before Christmas and a few of us were playing Ring of Fire. Now we changed it, so that 6 was truth and 4 was dare. I unluckily pulled dare. Now imagine a tower block, about 8 stories high with 2 flats on each floor. We were up on the 7th. The lads in this flat had done Secret Santa, and one of the novelty items was a Santa hat cork sock. As you can probably guess, I was subjected to wearing nothing but the aforementioned item of clothing. I then had to take the lift down to the ground floor with a couple of my mates who videoed the following events for evidence, and above all, banter. I was to knock on the door of either of the flats before reciting a Christmas carol of my choice to whoever had the pleasure of answering the door. I knocked on the first door several times but without answer before proceeding to knock on the other door, but with identical results. Obviously everyone had gone home for Christmas. In a drunken stupor we decided to go up 1 floor and try again as I hadn't fulfilled the deed. This boyish enthusiasm was quickly quelled when the 2 security guards entered the building. I went very pale, and I could have sworn my penis hid inside the shell of my body, just as much as I wanted to hide inside the shell of my clothing at that moment. Needless to say, they were shocked, confused, and terrified at the sight of my balls, which couldn't fit inside the sock which was intended for the shaft only. After saying sorry about 1,000 times in true in-betweener style, we retreated to the elevator where we all decided, surprisingly enough, that my near-naked encounter with the security guards definitely beat anything my mates could have come up with, and that the dare was complete. I hang my head in shame every time I walk by those security guards. TLDR, got dared to go down to the ground floor of friend's flat building in Corksock to recite Christmas carols, only to be rudely interrupted by the 2 resident security guards. I think I was in 8th grade or so, about 15 years old. I was at a bonfire party. As the bonfire is dying out, and the party with it, we start playing Truth or Dare. A lot of people had left before then, so we were about 7 people I think. 3 boys and 4 femme fatales. Well, the game starts off pretty tame. Have you ever eaten anything disgusting? I dare you to lick a leaf. That sort of tame. Then all of a sudden, things start to heat up. The girls get very into each other. The dares are starting to become very sexual. The truth questions very personal and over the top. Anyway, after a very satisfying game for a horny 15-year-old, I get a dare that would scar me, literally and emotionally, for at least a few years. I had to take a dump over the bonfire. While there was no flames anymore, the ember was still burning hot. The feeling of Myers about to melt, and the foul gut-wrenching stench of warm, almost boiling sheet. It was horrible. To top it off, I had to get antibiotics because I had got some burns that got really infected. I couldn't sit properly for a month. Also, the ladies weren't all that into me after that. At least not for some time. But hey, I got to see lesbianism, got to third base with one. An infected is worth all that. Playing truth or dare in college to me sounded like I was going to get laid, so of course I was down for it. We all sat around the poker table and passed blunts around. If you choose to skip out on the dare or truth, you weren't allowed your turn to hit the blunt. It was a reasonable safety to get people to participate, because the harder your question or dare was, the bigger hit you could take. I choose dare, and they ask me to hit the fire escape. Everyone instantly smiles, and I'm just looking around super confused. Like, why would I punch a fire escape? No extra details were offered. I drew a complete blank at what this meant, so I finally said yes for the love of adventure. They all shrieked and got giddy, and ran upstairs. I followed them to the loft, and stepped out onto the fire escape. Tucked in the corner, nestled up against the house, was the fire escape they were talking about. The fire escape, a 16 feet bright red bong that was literally attached to the outside of the house on the fire escape. They removed the cap off the top, poured a whole water bottle in the top, and packed all 6 of the bowls that were taped to the top. My friend grabbed his torch lighter, and I took a couple nervous breaths later. I was ready to go. I put my lips around this, and the only thing I could think of was, is this what it feels like when a white girl goes down on a black guy? After having that floating through my head, it was all I could do to stop from laughing as I ripped through the first 3 bowls without noticing. My friend quickly switched out for the 4th bowl when I realized how much I had smoked. Watching the smoke suck into this giant faking elephant trunk of a tube made me think of swimming from the bottom of a pool when you're almost at the surface and you can see air, but it's just a hair away. I finished the last bowl and covered the top with my hand as I pulled away and blew out enough smoke to last 2 breaths. I went to an immediate 8, and it was dead quiet as everyone just looked around like, did that just happen? I took a long blink and cleared that bong like I was trying out for a full ride scholarship. To complete the story, yes, I did end up getting laid. A very long storyteller. I went to the lake with my cousin in the summer of 2010 with my cousin Tyler and his dad, stepmom, stepsister Anna, her friend Heather, my cousin's friend Jim. We started drinking and were pretty wasted. Tyler and Jim had struck a deal with each other wherein Tyler would try to get with Heather and Jim would try the same with Anna. All good, except for Anna was 14 and Jim was 20. I seemed to be the only one with the issue with that fact, but I was drunk and didn't want to cause a problem. We get into a tent and start playing truth or dare. It starts with Tyler daring Anna to kiss Jim. They do, and then Jim dares Heather to do the same to Tyler. It escalates throughout where I get dared bullshit things like walking around the campground naked and shit, while everyone else is getting dared to get a hand job. Eventually, I get asked by Anna truth or dare, but I knew where the whole night was ending, so I dared myself to go out and smoke a cigarette. As I was smoking it, Jim and Heather went into another tent, and what happened next is pretty clear. I end up keeping watch, because we are all under 18 except for Jim. I spend 2 hours sitting around a campfire drinking a 12-pack of 6-point and chain smoking a pack. I end up half passing out, and I hear a zipper, and then my cousin say sheet. I get slapped in the face a couple times. I open my ears and say, hey, what does this smell like? And breathes into my face. Yeah, teenage girl vagina. TLDR, got wasted. Pretty sure statutory from my friend to my cousin's stepsister. Passed out. I may regret not making a drop account, but it's been a year since I've seen like any of these people. So my friends and I were partying at my friend's awesome birthday party. He was turning 17 and his father had just gone away for the weekend and left all the alcohol out. And needless to say, a lot of people got drunk, but I remained first or second most sober. It's fun to watch drunk people, so we started doing dares, and at this point it was only 5 guys, so they were manly, painful, and humiliating dares, and it came around to me. It was either say who I liked, which at the time was the girl half the people in the room liked, so I declined and got the dare, which was take a salad dressing spray to the eyes. I could take a shot of some nasty sheet as punishment for doing neither, but I thought it wouldn't be that bad. 1 hour later it's 2 AM and most of us are past drunk at this point, and I'm partially blind because I have my glasses off and my eyes were faked up from the salad dressing, and apparently the birthday boy had called up some girlfriends of ours saying the party was still going, and of course they came over. Now I didn't know at the time, but this was the girl I was interested in and so was half the party. Her being ballsy as fuck gets dared to make out with whoever she drinks the same shot as. Of course it was me, and at this point 2 of the guys actually fell asleep, and one was so drunk he didn't even really know what was going on. So we went on making out for at least 10 minutes till I picked her up and brought her into a bedroom, making out all the way, still not knowing who she was, but seeing she was good looking. Long story short, we go all the way and pass out after more than an hour of doing it at 4 AM. I wake up and realize it's the girl I like, and she realizes she just slept with one of her best friends, and I almost never managed to talk to her again because she would always get incredibly embarrassed and run away. TLDR, I got blinded, everyone started passing out, and I wound up having sex with the girl I liked and it never got anywhere because of it. Lost a friend and a crush all at once. PS, one of those friends is dating her and can barely talk to me knowing I slept with her. It was in 8th grade on school trip where we stayed in a hostel one night when the teachers were already in bed. A group of boys and girls, including me, were gathering in one of the girls' rooms. We played truth or dare and everyone was getting dared to kiss someone or touch someone or ask whom he or she likes in our class, except me. I was already some kind of outsider to most of them. I was getting pretty sad when suddenly this girl whispered something to her neighbor, and she nodded with a wide grin. She pointed at me, and I was dared to kiss this one beautiful girl I always liked, cause she was one of the only ones that were ever nice to me. She was also the one who asked me to join them for this game. Like the others, we should go outside of the room. It had a door that lead outside to a balcony and do what we were told out there. Since I was pretty shy, I blushed, and my stomach gave me this feeling, which some describe as butterflies, but in my case, was kinda painful. Still, I was really happy, since I got the feeling that they couldn't dislike me that much if they actually let me join their game. Man, was I wrong. As soon as I walked out on the balcony, they closed the door shut and they all began to leave the room. And as one the last ones, the girl, the one that whispered this idea into her friend's ear, grinned and waved at me, then turned the light off and closed the door to the room. I don't know why I didn't yell for help or how long I have actually been out there, but I cried and something in me broke my hopes for a better life. 4 years. The one that let me back in BTW was this girl I thought I was supposed to kiss. She said she was sorry and that she didn't know they planned this. I remember a party when I was about 14. We all got drunk, siphoning all the liquor my parents wouldn't have missed in the whole house, and then someone had the bright idea to make a truth or dare game using what lasted of all the alcohol, so the people who would decline a dare or even a truth should drink up a glass of the powerful mixture carrot during the game. I first was the only one to have the balls to dare. While the other were babbling about their puberty and boring stuff, I had to kiss the whole drunk assembly using my tongue. Oh god. The worst thing was that there were so many much men than chicks this night. I assume I contracted a bunch of STD this night. After dodging a freaking huge amount of dare, people get so dizzy that the dare became sexier. All we remember is that 2 girls had to blow job me and one of my friend, that I pleased another girl with my tongue, then that a couple get away in a bedroom before everyone get on his chamber or fall unconscious. If I already had my first sexual intercourse a long time ago, I assume that a bunch of my friends wasn't virgin anymore after this. The horrible things was to tie up the mess the next day. We found a bottle of vodka emptied from its liquor full of used condoms. But the condoms were still wet from alcohol. We deduced someone was really thirsty. At least a great part of us used condoms. But yeah, the mess was horrible, and I had to explain to my mother why she found a used condom in the bathtub that hasn't been cleared. 2 stories, one being my most horrific, and the other being my best, with a continuation. First, horrific. It was horrific on the point I had to strip down to a t-shirt and my undershorts in 20° Fahrenheit weather, and walk knee deep into a small river that felt as cold as being in Siberia. My buddy who dared me cautioned me, saying, look, you have to be real careful. The river drops off fast unexpectedly. Watch out. So, in my mind, it was implied that the river drops off after said knee-deep zone. It went from half up my calf to oh my god it's at my nose, someone get me out of this goddamn hellhole. I paddled so fast to get out of that water and found myself still paddling when there was no water to be found. Then, I stripped my shirt and proceeded to run in the freezing weather to try and dry myself off. Plus side, my buddy also had the feature of his seat warming me up and the warmest truck I've ever been in. Good story. So, it was my first time getting stoned and I was laying down when my buddies dared this chick, whom we will call K, to put her tugs in my face. I don't have anything against this, despite me not having any interest towards this woman. She looks at me, also stoned, and does it. I sat there a minute, enjoyed the feeling, then motorboated the sheet out to her tigs. But oh, it gets better, fellows. My dare now. I dare my super attractive chick friend, of which I'm happily friend zoned. I wouldn't go there, to flash us for a good 10-20 seconds. In her cross-faded state, she gets down to her tank top and is pulling that up when she stops and beaches out our consequences of denying a dare. Fast forward to the next truth or dare. Drunk me dares her again. Super drunk offers as well. Same sheet. No dice. Fast forward a month. I'm smoking with everyone present at the first truth or dare when my buddy calls me over. He took a video of K and friend zone naked, drunk off theirs so much, so they hardly remember it, and agreeing to the dare of them making out for 10 seconds. Half a minute into the video, they went from standing to on the couch, and totally into it, then remembering the dare, and getting off each other almost reluctantly. It was beautiful, though I couldn't help but laugh next time I saw them for the next few days. Not a truth or dare game, but once on Jack Daniel's birthday they were doing harmonicas for free. If you bought 5 JD and Cokes, none of us liked JD at the time except for one guy in the group and we all wanted the harmonica. That poor guy drank 30 JD and Cokes in about 4 hours. Champion. On way home we came past the student union which was a few floors above a bank. We weren't allowed in on account of how utterly sloshed our JD friend was, so he dared himself to sneak in while we went in the door per usual. He climbed the sheer wall of the bank and in the window of the student union bar and was promptly ejected again. Same guy, snorted a mix of Pro Plus, Polos, and sherbet before his exams and was uncontrollably hyper. Stole a radiator and parked it with a parker ticket in the belief that the council couldn't legally remove it until the ticket ran out. Woke up with a tree in his bed. Climbed another building to steal an incentives available sign. Also took home a car park barrier that time. Currently has a grown-up job looking after munitions for the RAFXD. A few years ago a bunch of my friends and I rented a giant cabin up in Maine for a week during the summer. Every single night we got wasted and high. Greatest week and summer of my life. Anyways, one night I was tripping on shrooms and sitting in a hot tub overcrowded with people. We all decided to play truth or dare. After about 2 minutes the game basically turned into all the guys daring the girls to take their bikini tops off. They were all pretty well stacked, so it was awesome. But there was this one preppy, snobby girl we all didn't really know that well who came with a different group of people, and she kept refusing to say dare. After a little, while some of the guys and actually a few girls became a little annoyed with her constant truth request, everyone wanted to have fun. Finally I stepped up and asked a random girl, "Why do you keep picking truth? That's no fun. You should just pick dare." She replied with, "Because you guys are just going to dare me to take my top off." After thinking to myself for a minute I replied with, "Look, random girl, it's my turn to ask you truth or dare. Just pick dare. I promise I won't ask you to take your top off if you really don't want to." I was almost struggling to hold back my smile while she thought it over. She finally said dare. That's when I asked her to take her bottoms off. I've never seen someone go from a nervous calm to seething anger and hatred so quickly. I'm still surprised he didn't slap or punch me in the face. I immediately started to feel bad when everyone in the tub roared with laughter, so I told her to just take them off. hold them up out of the water, and then she could put them right back on. No standing up. She took them off, held them up, put them back on, and then promptly left the game and the tub. She said that she would be right back, but she never came back. I still feel a little bad about it. Ugh, had to make a throwaway for this filth. We were 12 to 14 years old. My friend lived on a big dairy farm. I lived in a super rural area, and they threw a 4th of July party. Parents all got drunk. Kids were lighting firecrackers and sneaking Mike's Hard Lemonades. Friend's parents were pretty cool about stuff. Let him drive a farm truck at 12. Didn't really mind us sneaking alcohol. We weren't sneaky. He asks his folks if a bunch of us can spend the night. They agree, but we have to sleep in the calf barn. Midnight rolls around. We all head out to the calf barn. Wide awake, a couple of us pretending to be buzzed. We start begging said friend to find us more to drink. He disappears into his house and comes back a few minutes later with some sort of dark liquor he said was from his parents' wedding. We bust out Dixie cups and Dr. Pepper and start mixing cocktails. A couple guys got insta drunk and someone gets the idea to start playing truth or dare. We did a bunch of normal who do you like questions, etc., but it gets dark quick. Someone dares one of the drunk kids to let a calf blow him. He reluctantly agrees and everybody gets up. This poor kid must have been trying his best to act tough and follow through, but what happened next was atrocious. We find the only calf that is still standing up, and he keeps trying to feed it his wiener. I ducked out of the calf barn as I could see from the yard outside. Plus I didn't want to get lumped in with the rest of the idiots if parents woke up and demanded an explanation. The next thing I know, this kid is screaming like he's being eaten by a velociraptor. Turns out calves buck their heads to try to extract milk from udders and have big sandpapery tongues. He has to pull it back out and looked like he was going to pass out. We all walk back to the calf barn and he goes into the washroom and the milk parlor to wash himself off. Comes back 10 minutes later with an erection and starts telling us it'll take it this time. I know it. The weirdest part is I graduated with around 75 people, half of whom were male and present for this party, the other half being female, and were told about the incident, and even though everyone knew, it never really hurt his social life. Guess farm folk are quick to forget. I, however, never will. New Year's. Parents out of town and had a party at my place. Game started with truth or dare and usual things happened like semi-nudie runs, jump in the pool clothed, etc. relatively harmless. Then my girlfriend dared another girl, who was hot as fuck, to make out with me. There was only one other guy in the group and 5 girls. So I make out and it's fine. Then the girl asks another girl to make out with me, so I comply too. The other guy starts getting excited that he was going to have a girl make out with him. Then my girlfriend's turn comes up, turns to one of the girls and says, "I shit you not, suck my boyfriend's dick in front of everyone." Without hesitation she comes up, pulls it out, and goes to town. I was like, what the fuck? Stops after a minimum, then she goes AWW. Other guy hasn't been involved in a while, let's get him in on it. So he eagerly says dare. Gets dared to have 3 flaming shots of Galliano. He misses on the 3rd and spills it all over his face, gets burns, and goes to the emergency room. Everyone left, goes to bed. Hot girl makes out with me while I show her the room she was sleeping in. Then when I get to my parents' room, has to stay there as there wasn't enough space. My girlfriend and the one who gave me a BJ are in the spa naked asking me to join them and continue the fun. TLDR, I get to make out with 3 girls, get a BJ and threesome. Mate gets 3rd degree burns and hospital. I was 11 years old and my parents got invited to a party of some friend, and I don't like going to parties that involve no one I knew being there and having to be with my parents. So I was forced to go, and I sat at the table my parents were at for 2 hours. Then 2 random girls walk up to me while my parents were dancing, and they began to ask me a bunch of questions. Then they said that I should go with them somewhere, so me being a 11-year-old I said okay. They took me to the back of the house where there were a bunch of kids whom I didn't know till later were all high and were 4 years older than me. They began to play truth or dare, and when they got to me I said truth, and they said we don't know you, so we can't ask you anything about truth. So you have to pick. Dare. I took the dare, and it was ridiculous. The one kid said, I dare you to go up to one of the girls dancing and touch their boobs. I walked towards the area where everyone was dancing, and it was dark and filled with smoke and some strobe lights, and everyone was following behind me and stopped once I went into the whole crowd of people dancing. It was crazy. I was getting pushed, and as was bumping on me, and I finally saw this lady dancing in front of the group of kids who dare me to do it, and she had humongous boobs. So I walk up to her being a ninja, and I thought no one would see me, not even her dance partner, since it was dark. So I pull up my shirt a little bit in front of my face and I go in between her and her partner and squeeze her tigs, and out of nowhere her partner kicks me and grabs me and pulls me up, and the music stopped. This huge guy was holding me up, and the lights went on, and I felt so embarrassed. I later found out the lady was the wife of my parents' friend, and the friend was the one who kicked me and pulled me up. I ended up having to say sorry, and my parents got my brother to pick me up, and later on the next day I got a long lecture and a huge punishment. I was 13, playing truth or dare with a male friend. I'm female, and I'm also gay. I was stupidly naive and didn't think that just maybe a one-on-one game of truth or dare with a middle school boy might end badly. But, well, he dared me to take off my shirt. I said no. He started getting all handsy and said, fine, I'll take it off for you, as he proceeded to try to wrestle me out of my shirt and grope my mini boobs, all while I kept yelling, no, stop, pick another dare. Finally he backed off, and I made some excuse about needing to get home for whatever. Fine, but I'm not letting you leave until you kiss me. I figured, okay, I need to get out of here, so I gave him a quick kiss on the cheek and started walking away, but he grabbed my arm and told me to do it again. I did, still a quick one on the cheek, and then I rode my bike home super fast, took a shower, and hid in my bedroom. I didn't kiss anyone in any way until about 7 years later, when I finally felt okay giving my best friend a little kiss on the hand. Long story, quite platonic, nothing to see there. I mean, as these things go, it wasn't the worst thing possible, but it really faked with my mind. I've played truth or dare a couple times since, but I never choose dare. I had gone on a group trip to Israel, and on the last night we snuck out of the hotel in Tel Aviv and went to the beach. My friend was 15, I had just turned 17, but we bought beer anyway and were walking up and down the beach just talking, and planned to meet up with the rest of our group around 3 AM. A bit past 2 this guy comes up to us and asks us to play a game of truth or dare with a group. My friend and I both speak Russian, but once we figured out that neither he or the other people he was with spoke it, we figured that if it got sketchy she'd fake a phone call with our friend who was getting drunk not too far from us. We get there, and most of the people are pretty nice. It's 2 girls about our age, a gorgeous Yemenite boy also our age, this guy who's not very cute who's friends with the original boy, and the original guy who's wearing underwear. For the most part it's going okay. We are talking and avoiding any super bad questions. The Yemenite boy takes off his clothes and goes in the water, which nobody was opposed to, and the other girls are pretty nice and most people's English is pretty good. My friend also speaks some Hebrew, so she translated as needed. At some point the beach security comes over and starts talking to us and hitting on the other girls who are 16 maximum. At this point we ask the original boy what's going on, and he can't really translate. His English isn't good enough. So we ask him how old he is, assuming he's in the army and 19, 20 maximum. He was 25. Once we realized we had just played truth or dare with a guy nearly 10 years older than us who had been blatantly hitting on 16-year-olds, we hightailed it out of there and went to go get drunk on Arak with the rest of our friends. TLDR, some malicious people at a party used truth or dare to repeatedly coerce me and an obese girl who I found unattractive to go to second base. Repeatedly. Truth or dare always came off as some exciting game when I was growing up. Spoiler, I found out that it really sucks if you play with assholes. Reddit Antelope gets invited to a party. I was not too long out of high school and still suffering from chronic social awkwardness. But for some reason, this girl, we'll call her S, calls me rather last minute, 8 PM, the day of, to invite me to a party, which was really just a 6 to 8 people who came together to play drinking games, more or less. I suspect now that S invited me because I was awkward and she hoped a guy as awkward as me would also be desperate enough to distract the ugly girl, one of their friends, at the party, so she wouldn't throw a wrench in any of their attempts to get some action. My interest was piqued because S was cute, but being fresh out of high school, without a car, and mass transit was shutting down for the night, I had to get dropped off by my dad. Unfortunately, I realized shortly after arrival that attendance was rather low. The party attendees _S, the girl who called me, former volleyball player, cute, also paired off with P, a guy, P, a friend of a friend. Looks like The Rock, except with a normal, non-bulked up build. Same skin tone and basic facial structure. Another guy, K, a friend of a friend, P's friend. 6 feet tall-ish, your basic WASP kind of guy. S's friend, let's call her, married girl. Short to shoulder length black hair, acidic humor, paired off with K, who was notably not her husband. S and MG's friend, who I'll call, third wheel. Rather obese, and to mine eye, unattractive. Yet another guy, who I'll call, stoner guy. Possibly an early attempt to find a blocker for third wheel. Clearly not going for it, but not being mean about it. Long hair, in a band, laid back, etc. And me. Apparently called in at the suggestion of P, K, and/or S, to keep third wheel occupied. Truth or dare, humiliation edition _. So sometime after I arrive, it's decided to play truth or dare. I held vain hopes that things might get interesting, but they only got awkward. After a few dares which involved S kissing P, or married girl doing something dirty to K, it finally came to third wheel's turn. Third wheel called for a dare, and then someone, either S, P, married girl, or K, said, kiss Reddit antelope and feel up his crotch. Cue my stomach sinking and snickering in the background. Despite everything, third wheel wasn't taking advantage, or at least, she didn't enjoy being forced to. I could tell that she felt awkward about the situation too. She knew I wasn't into her, and the whole thing felt like a malicious setup for the paired off people to get cheats and giggles. Regardless, I sat there in horror as she came over in what felt like slow motion, and then endured a disgusting wet smack on the lips, while she palmed my junk. And as if that awkwardness and humiliation wasn't enough, one of the 4 paired off people called out, "Is he hard?" Yeah, I wasn't. Which was understandable, but somehow, irrationally, it felt like a knock on my manhood, even though I should have known that no one should have expected me to be excited about kissing third wheel. For her part, I surmised that third wheel was rather humiliated being asked that question when I was so clearly limp. I imagine it emphasized her own unattractiveness in her own mind. In any case, her voice kind of broke as she answered, no, eliciting raucous laughter from everyone who wasn't us. The whole experience was, suffice to say, humiliating and kind of violating. But, of course, the game continued. Mercifully, my memory of the rest of the game has faded, though I remember that the P, K, S, and married girl, aka, the 4 assholes, took every faking opportunity to use their turns to make out with each other while using mine and third wheel's turns to put me and third wheel together in the most debasing ways whenever possible. I did what I could to minimize the damage by taking truth on my turns, but still endured humiliating questions, which again, I've mercifully forgotten. Stoner guy escaped relatively unscathed. The aftermath of boredom. Even after the game was over, I had no way home and had to wait for someone to drop me off after the party wound down. Watching the 4 assholes make out as the night went on was like salt in the wound after being coerced into going to second base with third wheel. By default, I passed the time chatting to stoner guy. Eventually, everybody went to a 24-hour diner around 3 to 4 am. And following that, someone took me home. I didn't get home until almost dawn. In retrospect, I wish I had just walked home. It would have taken about 2 hours, but that would have been better than the hours of my life lost at the party. Edit. Interesting. I wonder if one of the people who was at the party found me and took umbrage at the fact I took umbrage at being humiliated. Edit. Added TLDR. Edit. Small edits. Grammar. I'll prefix this story by saying that this was around the time in my community that boys wearing boxer shorts and sagging your pants down a little had just become the cool thing to do, as opposed to wearing the tighty whities that your parents bought for you. You could say that anyone with decent popularity made the switch. I went to a party when I was about 14 and the teenage hormones were aging higher than 10 guy on a lazy Sunday. We were playing spin the bottle, strip poker, truth or dare, or the raunchy team games. One of the attendees of the party was the top alpha male of our year. Let's call him Jack, who had only been in our school for a couple of months and was getting a sizable amount of attention with the ladies, of course. The girls were constantly picking on him in strip games so they could catch a glimpse of his teenage abs, and he eventually ended up in his boxers. You could tell that he was loving the attention. At the time, getting jed on to take off your clothes by a bunch of good looking girls sitting around in their bras was pretty much the pinnacle of your existence. Truth or dare was next, and his first dare was to give the girls a quick flash of the goods. At that stage, he got surprisingly defensive and refused to take them off. It got to the point where you could tell he wasn't just refusing to appear resistant, the dude really didn't want to take off his boxers. Eventually, my best friend at the time decided that he was ruining the fun and proceeded to deck his boxers right down to his ankles. Lo and behold, brandishing his jewels underneath his boxers were none other than the most scraggly pair of oldest tighty whities. These things were so old that they were translucent, fraying around the sides, had a loose garter, and had faded skid marks all over the place. It looked like a pair of briefs that would have been worn for weeks at a time by a robust man who gorged himself on Mexican food every night. To make things worse, he rocked a fully erect business that only protruded no more than 2 inches, and there was a very visible fresh stain at the tip, presumably pre-cum from the visuals of all those half-naked girls. The reaction from everyone in the room, especially the girls, is something that I'll likely never experience again. It was a delicate blend of ridicule for wearing tights under his boxers, fucking poser, disappointment from the sight of his minuscule penis, and sheer disgust from the state of his underwear. After a couple of seconds of shocked silence, Jack pulls up his boxers and bolts out the door. The boys in the room erupted into laughter, while the girls look around at each other in shock, soon joining in on the lulls. A couple of the guys found him crying in the garage. He refused to come back inside and insisted on waiting for his dad to come pick him up. Needless to say, he spent the next week or so being super awkward around everyone and basically not speaking to people, and then transferred to a different school. I actually kinda felt for the guy, because by the time the story had spread to his new school, naturally, it had been exaggerated quite a bit, and he probably had a pretty terrible time. As a side note, the chick who some big ol' titties for a 14-year-old got dared to give me my first motorboat that night, and it remained the most commonly used and valuable imagery in my spank bank for the next couple of years. Good fucking times. TLDR, new guy in school, gets slammed from alpha male to alpha beach in 2 seconds because of truth or dare, and I love me some titties. I'm starting to notice a trend here. On another occasion, 2 friends, the same damn 2 friends in my other stories I've posted in this thread, and I were getting quite inebriated at a bar. For whatever drunken reason, one friend decided it would be hilarious to dare me to try to climb into a ventilation shaft in the bathroom. I'm quite the daredevil when inebriated, apparently. So the 3 of us all went into the bathroom, laughing as we locked the door. Then I was lifted up by one friend, while the other friend attempted to record it on his phone. Unfortunately, the friend helping me up was too drunk and lifted my leg too high, causing me to flip backwards and smash against a ridge on the wall. I got up like nothing happened, and we all emerged from the bathroom laughing our ears off, probably confusing the rest of the bar patrons, but we didn't care. I would later discover that I had a red mark extending from the top to the bottom of my shoulder blade. I'm well aware that I could have broken my back in this event. Thankfully the mark/bruise was the only injury I received. We were playing truth or dare at my friend's house. Let's call her Callie, and my friend, we'll call him Sebastian, was up. My other friend, this one is Rob, asked him truth or dare, and Sebastian, being the bouncy fellow he is, said dare. Well, Rob couldn't think of anything, so I dared him to call up our swim coach and ask her on a date. Unknown to me was the fact that she had offered to buy him and the fastest kid, Craig, on the team in a race. Sebastian and I were in the slow lanes. So Rob took out his phone because he had her number and dialed. Sebastian sat there waiting, but it went to voicemail, so he left a message that went something like this: "Hey, I'll miss her name. It's Sebastian. I know I didn't beat Craig in that race today, but I was wondering if you still would take us out to lunch. Only instead of us, just me, and instead of lunch, dinner." We all had a good laugh until she threatened to have us suspended the next day and punished us the only way she could. Rob had to swim the 500 free, a ridiculously long event. Sebastian couldn't swim at the next 2 meets, and I had to swim 2 events. I got intentionally disqualified by standing up because fuck her. Then later I rolled a condom down her stapler and left it on her desk as revenge. My senior app English teacher decided it would be cool to play truth or dare with us after the app test. He's gay, but always denied it, even though we all knew. So he dares a gay kid in my class to kiss a straight boy. So he ran over there to try to kiss him. The straight kid left the classroom and the teacher was really pissed. Then he asked me a truth. I was basically the only blonde, white girl at the school. Would you have sex with Ryan? Basically the only white blonde guy at school? When I said no, he kept telling everyone that I was a liar and a hussy, and that it was unbelievable that I was blatantly lying to him. Then he started asking/daring people if they'd make out with me. This B girl who sits in front of me started saying how she's always wanted to do it, but knew I was straight, so it'd never happen. So my teacher basically said that whatever happens in class stays in class. Luckily, the bell rang and we left. A few years after I graduated, he added me on Facebook and would tell me really inappropriate things, like who in class wanted to sleep with me, etc. He's a creepy weirdo who is obsessed with sex and people doing homosexual acts. I wish I would reported him. Many years ago in high school I was in a computer class, all Apple IIs. The class was on the 2nd floor and the teacher was a dick. Mr. Jeter, I think his name was. Anyway, the school I attended was a very traditional looking American high school, the kind of school you see in movies and TV shows. In fact, it was used for that purpose all of the time. Verdugo Hills High School in Tujunga, California. The classroom had a chalkboard on one end and 2 doors for entering / leaving from the hallway that was lined with lockers that we couldn't use. Los Angeles School District banned lockers. I was dared to unplug the master cord, as we called it, that powered all of the computers. I agreed, and after finishing my typing assignment, long before anyone else, and saving it to a floppy, I snuck into the back room area where this master cord went. When I made it to the room, I found that this cord was literally bolted into the wall and wasn't going to be unplugged without tools. Just as I was about to sneak my way back out, I noticed a pair of tree loppers/pruners on a desk in the room. I still have no idea why they were there, but they certainly did the job. Everyone was so frustrated by their lost work that they didn't even notice me sneak back to my desk, giggling the entire time I sat in the back. In return for completing my dare, I dared my friend to throw a stapler at the teacher. He agreed, and the next day he snuck out of the door with a stapler and into the hall. About 30 seconds later, I saw the stapler fly through the front door and smack the teacher on the side of the face. It didn't leave mark or anything, luckily for him, but it made a loud noise and he yelled, "Who the fuck?" and slowly made it out to the hall. My friend made it back to his desk before the teacher made it out there. Another time I was dared to throw one of the PCs out of the window, 2nd floor, onto the cement area below. After using a dime to unscrew the contraption holding it to the desk, I was able to do so. It broke into many pieces in a spectacular manner. When I was younger, like in 7th or 8th grade, I invited my 2 lifelong best friends who were moving away over to totally different areas to one last sleepover. We weren't bad kids, but we found a joint and smoked it. We think it was just tobacco, but whatever, we didn't inhale properly anyways. Later that night we decided to play truth or dare. We all were extremely comfortable with each other and it basically turned sexual fast. We were 3 straight guys daring each other to do some really weird stuff. One of them even ran around my basement naked, which was hilarious. Anyways, after a while, my mom snuck down the stairs and listened in. I have no idea how long. This was when it was getting really bad. We were getting tired, and guy 1 is like, I dare you to take this paper, wrap it around your dick, and have Jrox lick it. So we were both like, gross. That's too much, guy 1. And then he was suggesting other weird stuff, and then my mom stomped down the stairs and was like, that's enough, guy 1, and he just froze. My fight or flight kicked in and I ran. I sprinted to the other side of my basement and left him. It was a very cowardly thing to do. She made him spend the night in the guest room 2 floors up on me, and guy 2 slept in the basement. My mom brought me up for questioning, and I just acted half asleep. I was faking pissed, embarrassed, and humiliated. That's the last time I saw them. My mom told us that when guy 1 comes back to Ohio, he can't come in the house. It was complete bullshit. I feel like my lifelong best friend hates me now, and we are now pretty distant. Guy 2 and I still talk from time to time, and we are relatively close. I hate myself every day for that night. It wasn't really horrific, but rather unfortunate. During winter break, a group of friends and I rented out a beach house for a few days and spent our New Year's there. The amenities in and of the house itself were very nice. And some of the features outside included a play structure, fire pit, and hot tub. Unfortunately, it was cold as balls outside considering it was winter time in the already cold, rainy, and windy state of Oregon, so we didn't spend much time outside, though a lot of us did enjoy chilling and drinking in the hot tub in the evenings. One night, the few of us hot tubbing decided to play truth or dare. We did the usual, like sharing dark secrets, daring ladies to make out with each other, etc. Basically what one would hope a good and even sexy game of truth or dare would be like. Along with that, we decided to make this one rule that if it were your turn and you decided to pass on both truth or dare bestowed upon you, you had to get it out of the hot tub, run through the yard in the freezing and icy cold, and go down the slide of the play structure across the yard. Most everybody did their truth or dare, but we had an awesome friend who got out of the hot tub and ran across the yard in a skimpy speedo and went down the slide just for the hell of it. It was awesome to see, but unfortunate for him because of him deliberately running almost naked in freezing temperatures. Unfortunate for me because I'll never get the sight of his almost bare as cheeks out of mind. I feel close to him, like as if he were my brother. But now it's a little awkward for me because I'm always reminded of him in a teeny speedo and bare, as whenever I see him. I was young but old enough to know what my older sister was up to. She had several of her friends over one weekend when my mother and father were out of town. She was supposed to babysit me, but she really did not. Mostly she watched R-rated movies and smoked pot with her friends. Also, her boyfriend stayed every night while they were gone. Anyway, just memories. Back to the point. So she has all her friends over, co-ed style, right? She puts me to bed, of course I know better. I should state I was like 10, maybe 9, I can't really remember. But she tells me that if I come out of the room that night she was going to break the TV and tell mom and dad I did it. I did not believe her. I knew she was going to have a party and I'd have dirt on her. So I hid and watched the party that would soon become truth or dare. She was 15 at the time, or 16, again I cannot remember. Her boyfriend was there, and several of his older college friends. There were also probably 5 or 6 high school girls. I know, this was really dumb on her part, or maybe dumb on my parents' part for going out of town and leaving a dumb girl in charge. I don't know. The game starts out sort of childish. Eventually one girl had to kiss one of the college boys, and eventually one guy and girl leave and go into a bedroom and I assume he had sex with her. Yeah, not okay. Of course at the time I did not know better. Anyway, it starts to get a little weird. One guy dares one of the girls to let him finger her in front of everyone. This guy kept getting more weird and moves to touching a girl's butthole at some point, and it just kept going. But at this point my sister was so involved in the situation and so in love with her boyfriend that she just wanted approval to seem cool, so the girls all kind of just went with it. I could tell this one girl this guy was doing this to was not really happy about it though. Anyway, so as things keep going, eventually this guy brings out a small pocket gun, right, dares this girl to hold it. He swears up and down that it's not loaded. So she holds it. Everything is fine. She gives it back. It seems like things are eventually winding down right. Until he dares her to let him put the gun in her bussy. She says no, but things get weird, and he gets kind of aggressive. So she basically said okay. So as he does, he starts to basically make her have sex with this gun. He tells her to start to like it, and basically forces her to moan and stuff. The other girls are really worried now. Some of the guys are laughing. The guy's really into it. He's touching himself now. Bam, the gun goes off. He blows her vagina away. He starts laughing. There's blood everywhere. This chick's dead. And all the other girls are crying. The guy starts to come everywhere. Like the blood finally got him off. He ends up shooting everyone. Cutting them up and eating them. Even me. Yes, this story is fake. What the fuck did you all come to this thread to read? Some insane sheet, and I delivered. You're welcome. Now get off the internet and do something that will enrich your life, not degrade it.